I'm Charlotte McLeod with investingnews.com, and here today with me is Andy Schectman, president at Miles Franklin. Thank you so much for being here. Great to have you.
Charlotte, it's great to see you again.
Really good to be catching up. I feel like I see you here pretty much every year.
Yeah,
so
either here or in Vancouver.
Or in Vancouver, which
a little easier for you.
A little bit easier.
Yeah, well, it's the same way in reverse. When getting across the country in that diagonal is not an easy thing. People don't quite, especially coming back down this way from you to here. It's a whole day event.
It is. We both, I guess, get our time in the sun in our respective places. But, this conference, I think, is at the perfect time. We had the latest BRICS meeting wrap up, and this is one of the topics that we usually speak about is what's going on with the BRICS. And I read that Brazil's president called it the most important BRICS summit yet. So you give me your thoughts and takeaways.
Well, what he wants to do, he's calling for a unified settlement currency, not a unified currency, but a unified settlement currency. And last time you and I talked, we talked about that in the respect of what is called the unit. The unit settlement currency was something that was agreed upon in principle by a lady named Dilma Rousseff, who was the former president of Brazil and the head of the BRICS New Development Bank, and Sergei Lavrov. I don't know if it was Lavrov or Sergei Glaziev, one or the other. I get mixed up sometimes with the two Sergeys because I want to talk about what Sergei Lavrov said here in a moment. But in any case, there was a meeting on the sidelines of their last meeting in Russia where she came out and said, we've agreed in principle to a new settlement currency called the unit. It will be traded over mBridge. And mBridge is the cross-border payment system that was developed by China, Thailand, Hong Kong, and the UAE in conjunction with the Bank of International Settlements Innovation Hub. Now, the Bank of International Settlements is the central bank, the biggest bank in the world, very powerful. And what they did at the 12th hour, in my mind, is espionage. In my mind, it's right out of a James Bond movie. And there's a man there who I believe his tenure just came to an end. His name was Augustus Carstens. He looks like Augustus from Willy Wonka grown up. Seriously, a big portly guy. And he says, we can't be involved with a cross-border payment system that would allow countries to circumvent Western sanctions. So we're pulling the plug at the 12th hour, embarrassing them. And it's as if he just realized that Russia was the R in BRICS at the 12th hour after 4 years of building this Chinese technology through the BIS Innovation Hub, which would have assimilated, so to speak, or integrated this technology into the system, which would have hopefully meshed with SWIFT as an example. So they got very angry and things have kind of gone dark for a while. If you've noticed, there hasn't been a lot of conversation around it. So about 2-3 weeks ago, maybe 4 now, we see China come out and say we have integrated through our new renminbi cross-border payment system, Bridge Network, that is mBridge, 11 Asianic countries and 5 Middle Eastern countries that comprise 38% of global GDP. They are now fully integrated into this new system. This system, and by the way, those Asianic countries, they're countries in Southeast Asia. These countries combined are 38% of global GDP, and this system settles in 7 seconds, not the 3 to 5 days that it takes with SWIFT. No going back between dollars and your local currency 4 times to do a transaction with another country. No, it's 7 seconds with a 98% reduction in fees. And so right now you have those countries already signed up to it. Now, I want people to think about something before I explain what Sergei Lavrov just said, because to me, the pushback against BRICS, Charlotte, is it's not big enough. And Daniela DiMartino Booth kind of said something like that here at the conference, and I think her and James Rickards got into a little bit of a tussle over it all. He disagreed with her. I do too, respectfully, because if you just focus on BRICS, I guess I could understand that. And okay, 10 countries, and even though they are a growing, a growing group of countries and legitimacy, is that enough to challenge the Western hegemony? Maybe to a degree, maybe not. But what got me into the BRICS to begin with was understanding the Belt Road Initiative and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Those two organizations alone, the SCO is the largest regional military and financial organization on the planet that comprises roughly 50% of human population and 35% of global GDP in and of themselves, all right? The Belt Road Initiative is 70% of human population, about 48 to 50% of global GDP. Now, there's overlap between the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and the Belt Road, but I want you to think about it this way. You add in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, you add in the Belt Road Initiative, because, along with the BRICS, because what we just found out about 2 weeks ago was that the yuan is now convertible into gold through the Shanghai Metals Exchange, and that they are building a network of multi-jurisdictional vaults starting in Hong Kong, in Saudi Arabia, and then all throughout Africa and Asia, and probably into South America, to internationalize the yuan, where we pay for goods with yuan and settle imbalances in gold. So if I'm China, I buy gold from you, Saudi Arabia, I pay it in yuan and settle gold in the vault in Saudi Arabia. You can pull the gold right out of there. These multi-jurisdictional vaults allows it to be in various jurisdictions without it being in one central location. So keep all of this in mind. So you got all of these players that represent, goodness, close to 90% of human population. The Belt Road, the SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the BRICS, and then the Eurasian Economic Union. Now you got the president of Belarus has said the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and the Eurasian Economic Union should be melded into BRICS. They're all the same players. Okay, hasn't happened yet. But the same thing is true with the Belt Road. Largely underdeveloped, resource-rich, and China comes in and builds up the infrastructure, roads and bridges and maritime channels and railroads, and allows them to build gold and silver mines and oil refineries, and allows them to industrialize through their natural resources. They get a piece of it. All of this is in a thrust to develop not only the yuan, but in my mind, to set an infrastructure for the BRICS. Why do I say that? Because Sergei Lavrov came out 2 weeks ago, and no one is saying this. To my mind, everyone is saying what I'm saying right here. Vince Lancy has done an amazing job talking about this. But the one piece that everyone is missing is what Lavrov just said. He said that we will open this technology up to non-BRICS countries. However, it is not compatible with the dollar, the pound, or the euro. So think of it in terms of the Belt Road. Think of it in terms of the SCO and the BRICS. You are opening up this ability to settle in 7 seconds outside of SWIFT, and then settle imbalances. And by the way, that's in local currencies. And so if you have a currency and I have a currency, and we really never get to use it very much cross-border because we're always using dollars, now we get to use our own currencies, which strengthens our own monetary ecosystem. And it also inspires fiscal and monetary prudence. We have to be wise and smart in the way that we deal with our currency. Not too much inflation, not too much printing, not too much anything. We build our own infrastructure. We trade our local currencies over a bridge network that settles like that outside of SWIFT, settle imbalances once a month or once a quarter in multi-jurisdictional vaults in gold, which is replacing not the currency, but what backs the currency, like the treasury. And these vaults will be like the skeletal system of a new financial matrix. So what I'm getting at is simply this. You now have a BRICS infrastructure that is growing. 48 countries have applied or expressed interest. 23 or so have officially applied, Vietnam being the last one to officially apply. Indonesia was just admitted. Mexico's there this year. You got all of this interest. But now, even if you're not a BRICS member, but you are aligned with the BRICS countries, you have the ability to use this bridge network, not just for the BRICS. That, to me, right there is the biggest development, period. And that's goes hand in hand with what Brazil, the chair for Brazil, is talking about. And that is a payment system that is independent of the SWIFT and independent of the dollar. You put it together, it's like a chessboard, right? You're setting your pieces up on the chessboard so that you're very close to, you're screwed, checkmate. Now, they haven't got to that point yet. But when all these vaults are built and all of this infrastructure, independent of the BRICS countries, including the BRICS countries, gains maturity, and the settlement system in gold really works, and using local currencies really works, this is something that no one is counting on. And I think it accelerates tremendously this payment system that over time disrupts the settlement in dollars and the reserve status of the Treasury, which is being replaced by gold. I think it's massive news, Charlotte. I really, truly do.
Sounds really big. And thank you, as always, for going into the details there that we definitely don't see in other locations. I'm curious to get your thoughts. So, we've had the BRICS meeting, we've recapped kind of what is coming out of there, all these significant developments. At the same time, and you'll probably tell me this is no coincidence, we've had Trump and his tariff talk on countries that align themselves with the BRICS. And he's talked previously about those 100% tariffs on the BRICS. So what do those actions tell us about how Trump and the U.S. are perceiving what's going on?
It's stupid as hell, if you want to know the truth. After 4 years of administration being too stupid to be stupid, this just puts stupid exclamation point. You should be extending the olive branch and finding ways to work cooperatively. Those are not tariffs. Those are sanctions. A tariff is something you put in place to protect your manufacturing. If I don't like what you're doing, Charlotte, and I say, you know what, if you keep doing, I'm putting 110% tariff on anything you do. That's not a tariff. That is a sanction. I'm threatening you. I'm not putting a tariff on to equal or level the playing field. What he is doing is accelerating and reinforcing the mentality that these countries have to begin with to get together. That is of a country that not only is being coercive and being combative and being a bully, but this is a country who we shine a light upon all of the irresponsible spending, right? And DOJ says we can get up to $2 trillion in savings, and they show Congress can't vote on it, they can't ratify anything, so they come to $80 billion in savings, right? That's a lot of money for you and me. That's 38 hours worth of spending in the U.S. government. So we're a government, they want to raise the debt ceiling to $5 trillion. There's going to be a $2.5 trillion deficit. There's tremendous infighting still between red and blue, and this coercion and our irresponsible spending, and on and on and on. We haven't learned. And so we've pissed off the world. And so in my opinion, it's the wrong thing to do. Now, let me say this. I'd vote for Trump again. I voted for him. I'm glad he's here. I think we'd be in a world of hurt if it were the other way around. However, his actions, the previous administration's actions were too dumb to be dumb. This is almost like he's trying to foster in a reset the way the previous administration did. Piss everyone off enough so that they dump treasuries. Now, they're already doing it. They're already shedding treasuries. The Fed had to come in 2-3 weeks ago and buy $48 billion worth of treasuries, 3, 10, and 30 year. The Treasury had to come in 2 weeks in a row and buy $10 billion worth of longer maturity, 10, 20, 30-year treasuries, because the demand is waning. So these countries are shedding treasuries and buying gold. But if that's ultimately, if you realize we're too far down the rabbit hole, that we've created such a mess with our indebtedness, with interest rates that we suppressed forever, that we can't fix the problem. If we try to tackle inflation with higher interest rates, we blow up the system. If we lower interest rates and inflation gets too high, we ultimately lead to a place where rates go higher again through inflation. And we're at that point where we're damned if we do and we're damned if we don't. And I will say the one difference between this administration and the previous is that this administration knows it, because we've become a net importer of gold since November. We've imported pretty damn well near $100 billion worth of gold since November that we know of. Somewhere in the neighborhood of $15 billion worth of silver that we know of. We have become net importers. And then you get Trump on Easter Sunday saying, well, he who has the gold makes the rules, the golden art of negotiating. You have Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, who says, I want to preside over another Bretton Woods, a new monetary system. He's a self-proclaimed gold bug. And then you have Judy Shelton, who in my presentation, I play a 1-minute snippet. And she, in no uncertain terms, and she just said it again yesterday on Twitter, in no uncertain terms, she said to me, Andy, Trump told me when I was on his transition team, and for those who don't know Judy, she was his Federal Reserve nominee in 16 or 17, wasn't confirmed, but will probably be in that list of members who would take that position after Powell resigns or his tenure comes up to run the Fed. She said, Andy, on July 4th, 2026, Trump is going to make a huge deal of it because this is the 250th anniversary of the country. And he told me this is a big deal for him. And he's going to issue gold-backed treasuries, 50-year in duration. And later on we'll do shorter durations. But she said it on my on my video, and I play it for everyone in the audience, and she said it on Twitter again yesterday. Yes, I believe he will issue 50-year treasuries pegged by gold. Now, step back for a moment. I think someone said to him, if we don't do this, we're in big trouble. The rest of the world is accumulating gold and silver because the prices have been suppressed on COMEX and the LBMA for so long. They're gobbling it up, and if we don't do it, we're screwed. The amount of gold and silver coming into COMEX month over month over month over month, every single month seems to be record. The May contract just a month and a half ago was the largest delivery of both gold and silver in the history of the COMEX market. Who is buying all of this gold and silver? And most of it is leaving the COMEX. Where's it going? Who's taking it? And these are really big deals. So if you realize that that goes hand in hand with the central bank buying, I think someone got Trump's ear and said, not only do we need the gold and silver, but mathematically we're in trouble. And we do need a reset. And I would argue we're in the midst of that reset right now. But how do you reset the system without falling on the sword? Well, you find a villain. And how do you find the villain? Well, you incentivize everyone, all those mean countries who are being so unfair with us. I want to address that for 1 minute. Are they really being unfair with us? Because Triffin's dilemma says if you are the world reserve currency, you will always have a trade imbalance, period. You cannot provide the world enough dollars just through trade that they all need. So you have to export dollars, which means the dollar is strong, which means other currencies are weak, which means your manufacturing is non-competitive. So you send your manufacturing over to China and to Vietnam and to other countries who make things for you at half the price. And it's those countries who have used our dollars and bought our treasuries that have kept goods cheap, interest rates low, and asset prices high. That's the benefit we get for being the world reserve currency, amongst others. And if we think that we can then put tariffs on everyone else because it's not fair, think about it. Is it fair? We expect them all to use our dollar and to buy our treasuries. So what I'm getting at is they understand we're too far down the road. We can't raise rates or we blow up the system. We can't lower rates and inflate or we blow up the system. How do we get out of this indebtedness? How do we handle all of this massive debt load, another $2.5 trillion added onto it now? Yeah, there's $37 trillion, but what about the $175 trillion that isn't on the balance sheet? Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, government, military pensions, all of that stuff. How does that get paid for? So is he trying to get to a point where everyone says, screw it, dumps dollars, dumps treasuries, rates spike, stocks, bonds, real estate, the banks, the insurance companies are all inversely correlated to that? That's when you reset the system. You've brought back all of the gold. You peg a new system to gold, and you become more nationalistic rather than globalized. Now, I don't say that very often, but in my soul, I feel that is almost what he's trying to do. If not, his actions are too stupid to be stupid, because Vice President Vance talks about Triffin's dilemma. It's been written about on White House stationery, and he says, maybe being the world reserve currency isn't all it's cut out to be. And the Treasury Secretary says, I want to preside over a new Bretton Woods. Bretton Woods is when we took over the world reserve currency from the pound sterling after World War II. You put all these things together and you have to ask yourself, what is the right answer? I don't know. But what I will say to you is that gold is being, something very different is happening with gold globally. And I feel as though it's quietly being reintegrated into the monetary system. I really, honest to God, I do. It's wealth. And the biggest money in the world understands that, because you would not see the record month over month over month over month deliveries into the United States, let alone the record central bank buying for the last 4 years. So yeah, something big is happening, Charlotte, truthfully, bigger than most of us, I think, understand, including myself.
Certainly, it feels that way. And that's such an interesting question. We'll have to watch how that develops. This idea is it planned, or what is really going on here? So we'll keep an eye on that. We know the implications for gold are huge. I want to bring you over to silver as well, though. I've been getting a lot of questions about what's going on with silver. We've seen a price move. People are interested in that. What are your thoughts on where silver goes?
Ultimately higher than anyone thinks possible. I think it's the most undervalued asset on the planet. The word that I think of is asymmetrical, low downside, high upside. I have been one of the few people who have either been too stupid or had the guts to say that I believe it's the military-industrial complex that has been suppressing the price of silver for a very long time. And I think they've gotten caught. Let me explain. Most of my career, no one ever stood for delivery. Never stood for delivery. Right now, we see the LBMA, the London Metals Exchange, which has watched its inventory. If anyone out there Googles silver stockpiles of LBMA, you'll get a graph. And it's like a ski hill. It's straight down to the lowest level of silver since they started keeping records in the 140-year exchange. It's being drained. Now, The LBMA is a T+1 settlement, meaning T for trade plus 1 settle. Third day your metal is moving. Well, they're telling us that it's T+8 weeks because they don't have enough in the way of trucks or manpower to move it. David Jensen, who does an amazing job on Substack, will tell you that they have a 190 million ounce float. They have 800 million ounces of silver there, of which 190 million are available to be delivered against the contracts. The other 500 plus million belong to the ETFs largely. But they trade 1.9 billion, excuse me, yes, 1.9 billion ounces per day is what they are in essence doing. The number that they really do is roughly 200 million ounces per day. That's what they post. But he goes on and shows proof, and it's been verified that they only post the final settlement numbers, that they're trading 10 times that amount to 1.92 billion ounces per day, 3.5 times the annual global mine supply, 10 times the float. So if everyone stands for delivery and you only have 1/10 the silver there, do you see a problem? Well, yeah, we're T+8 weeks now. Sorry, not the T+1 that we told you because we don't have enough in the way of trucks. So let me back that up. How does it all happen? 3 years ago, when I gave a speech at BRICS, where I always see you, Jay Martin's conference, and Jay is here, and it's the only other conference I always go to. Check it out. It's a good one in Charlotte's backyard in January in Vancouver. I said there's 500 ounces in the tip of a Tomahawk cruise missile. That's the research I came up with. And I don't know anyone saying that before that. A guy comes up to me in the audience and he says, I work for the Department of Defense. I almost fall over. He says, I have designed and helped develop cruise missiles, and I think there's some silver in it, but I think you're wrong on the number. Okay, sorry. He says, I'll get back to you. I don't hear from him. 2 years ago, he shows up with a stack of pictures. He says, you remember me? I helped develop the Tomahawk cruise missile. These are all declassified. And he showed me the pictures, and he said, you're right, I'll be damned. Between 13 and 14 kilograms of silver in the cone of almost every cruise missile you can think of, Hellfire, Tomahawk, Patriot, you name it. And all sorts of high-tech weaponry and aerospace and submarines, they all have silver in it. And now so the military needs all this silver for high-tech weaponry. It used to be calculated in the supply-demand numbers out of the Silver Institute. Not anymore. It vanished. We have a 250 or 60 million shortfall every year and no military applications in the supply-demand numbers. Okay, so even more interesting. And then you get to the point where you take a look at COMEX. There are 8 banks, 8 Western commercial banks, 8, that hold the largest concentrated short position of any commodity ever traded in the history of the COMEX market in silver. This tiny little market, you have 8 banks that are massively short. And the LBMA, they're trading 3.5 times the annual global mine supply every single day, 10 times the availability of the silver that they have backing those contracts. All of this stuff. Now ask yourself, why? Why would 10 Western banks, 8 Western banks, hold a short position as extremely large as it is, and almost all of it naked, meaning it's not backed by anything? And the question is, in my mind, answered by the reality of the military-industrial complex. Think BlackRock. BlackRock is the custodian, along with J.P. Morgan, of the world's largest silver trust, SLV. You can naked short the hell out of SLV if you want. So let's just pretend I'm right for a moment. A company like BlackRock, who owns all of the military manufacturers, like Raytheon and all of the companies that make the weapons, well, they also are very deep into silver, whether it be PSLV or being a custodian of SLV and GLD. So they suppress the price of silver to make the high-tech weapons to create and sell all around the world to wage war. And then you see countries like the Ukraine get blown up with those weapons. Who then gets the reconstruction contract? Oh, yeah, it's BlackRock. My point to you is this. It's not that silver has underperformed or is counterintuitive in its nature. It's why are 8 banks holding it down the way that they are. Now, people would say, well, can that go on forever? No, it can't, because for the first time over the last 2 years, countries that are now coordinated, motivated, sophisticated, and wealthy, mostly the BRICS nations, are saying, okay, well, we'll stand for delivery. And the LBMA, zoom, their inventory is dropping. Now we're T+8 weeks. Sorry, we're not the T+1 day that we told you we are. And now you're seeing record imports into the United States. Record, month over month over month. Huge amounts. So the question is silver traded freely? No. will it? Yes, I believe it is, because what is happening for the first time ever is that these banks in the West, who are as stupid as a mud wall by doing this, are now being challenged by the rest of the world for delivery. So I would say silver offers potential that I've never seen in any asset I've ever owned or would ever think of buying with such low downside. And, I would say to those people, have strong fingertips, trust your gut. There isn't an asset with a better setup on the planet, not just for the fact that it's undervalued or it's being shorted, but the plurality in uses, monetary uses, digital uses, solar panel use, military use. All of these uses for silver in different areas makes it an asset that, and your folks in Canada are lobbying to move it from a industrial to a strategic metal. It is a strategic metal. And my favorite guy on Twitter, Eric Young, King Kong on Twitter, Yeung, I think it is, he says the Chinese are doing the same thing. They're shorting the price in the West to beat it, join them if you can't beat them, and buying it all around the world. China is the second largest producer in the world of silver, and they're flying all around Latin America. Go ask Sean Kunkun from Dolly Varden. He'll tell you they're flying all around Latin America, going right to the miners like Dolly Varden and saying, we will buy your doré and your concentrate and pay double what the West will. Doré being crudely refined bars and concentrate like a sludge, and they ship it back to China to refine it. Now, why would the second largest producer in the world of silver need to do that? And Sean says because it is strategic, they see the future, and they're trying to pickpocket every last ounce on every shelf across the globe. But if you short it first in New York, then you go all around the world and buy it where it's not reflective, where its acquisition doesn't reflect the price change. And in particular, going directly to the miners, where you're disintermediating the market altogether. So yeah, in my mind, Charlotte, it is the most undervalued asset of a generation. And I say that with 1,000% sincerity.
This is fascinating as always. Thank you so much for going into
Sorry I'm so long-winded, but it's
silver.
I'm passionate about it.
I can tell. I always love to talk to you. I have to wrap it up now and send you back out onto the shore floor, but we'll have you back for a longer conversation for sure. This was great. It's a lot to take in. I always have to watch them a couple of times.
It's all good.
So
Thanks for having me, Charlotte. I look forward to seeing you again in person, probably in January.
Probably. Me as well. And for now, once again, I'm Charlotte McLeod with investingnews.com. And this is Andy Schectman with Miles Franklin.